There are places in this world where the boundary between the natural and the supernatural feels thinner than a morning mist. One such place hides in the quiet forests of Saxony, where an ancient-seeming bridge arches over still water. To the casual eye, it appears as a perfect circle of stone suspended between the trees and the sky. But look closer, and you realize the circle is an illusion born when the bridge's reflection completes its arc on the water's surface. This is the Rakotzbrücke, more commonly known as the Devil's Bridge of Kromlau, and it has baffled visitors for over a century. As you stand on the mossy banks of Lake Rakotz, the silence feels heavier than the basalt columns that flank the structure. Every stone seems to hold a secret, a whisper from a time when ambition knew no mortal limits. The bridge does not simply cross water, it defies the natural order, creating geometry that feels almost too perfect. Local legend insists no human hand could have shaped such flawless symmetry without otherworldly assistance. And so the name clung to the stone like ivy, the Devil's Bridge, a place where a pact was made in the dead of night. But who really built this spectral span? And what does its reflection truly reveal about the human soul? To unravel the enigma, we must first strip away the veils of folklore and step into the damp reality of 19th century Germany. The year was 1860, and a local knight and landowner named Friedrich Hermann Retschke had a vision. He inherited the estate of Kromlau and set about transforming the landscape into a romantic paradise. His dream was not merely a garden, but a living painting where architecture and nature collapsed into one another. Retschke commissioned a park filled with grottos, towers, and winding paths. But his centerpiece would be this extraordinary bridge. Workers hauled dark basalt stone from distant quarries, shaping each block without the modern machinery we take for granted. The arch they built was sharp and steep, jutting upward like the spine of a primordial creature. When the scaffolding came down and the water rose, something astonishing occurred. A flawless circle appeared. The parabolic arch, mathematically precise, needed the still water to become whole, and the water obeyed. Historians confirm the bridge is entirely a human creation, a jewel of the Romantic movement's obsession with sublime landscapes. Yet knowing the historical facts does little to quiet the eerie feeling that clings to the stones at twilight. The true mystery is not who built it, but how a rural landowner and his masons achieved such optical perfection in that era. Some architectural researchers theorize that the design drew on advanced geometric principles known only to a few master builders. The bridge's curve is not a simple half-circle, but a complex catenary, the same curve a chain makes when suspended at both ends. This engineering distributes weight so elegantly that the bridge seems to float above its own reflection. But the local whisperers have always favored a darker explanation for such unnatural beauty. Across many cultures in Europe, bridges of impossible design were said to be the work of the devil himself. The legend follows a chillingly familiar pattern. A desperate builder, struggling against time and material, called out into the night. In stories told by campfires, that builder promised the first soul that crossed the bridge in exchange for demonic aid. By dawn, the bridge stood complete, every stone locked into unbreakable perfection, the arch suspended by invisible strings. But the builder, cunning and terrified, did not send a human across to fulfill the bargain. Instead, according to the old tale, a dog was sent darting over the span, its paws barely touching the dew-soaked stone. Enraged by the trick, the devil vanished into the water below, leaving the bridge forever cursed with a name. When you stand there in the rising fog, It is easy to dismiss such stories as peasant superstition until you see the reflection. The inverted image below is not merely a mirror. It completes a dark pupil, turning the bridge into an unblinking eye staring up from the earth. It is unsettling how the water's stillness never truly breaks, as if the lake itself guards the secret of the circle. Visitors often report a sense of being watched, a sensation that the bridge is both a passage and a guardian of a threshold. The basalt columns, jagged and irregular, frame the circle like the stone teeth of a fossilized leviathan. During certain hours of the autumn equinox, the sun aligns to gild the illusion, making the stone and shadow seem to pulse. Geologists point out that the bridge's materials are purely terrestrial, volcanic basalt from the region, shaped by iron tools. Yet there is a persistent anomaly that catches the light. The surface of the stone appears almost vitrified, as if exposed to intense heat. Could the romantic masons have used some lost technique to seal the stone? Or did the legend's fire leave a physical trace? Another theory suggests the design may have been influenced by much older, pre-Christian bridge-building secrets passed down through guilds. Medieval fraternities of stonemasons often guarded the mystery of the arch jealously, treating geometry as a form of sacred knowledge. Rakotzbrücke, despite his noble status, might have patronized such a wandering artisan, a man who carried ancient blueprints in his memory. If that is true, then the Devil's Bridge is not a pact with darkness, but a ghost of a forgotten mathematical tradition. Rakotzbrücke filled his park with fake ruins and artificial grottos, yet this bridge refuses to be categorized as mere folly. There is a tension in the arch, a balance of stresses that feels too intelligent to be purely decorative. Engineers who study the bridge speak of its false arch construction, where stones lean on each other in a delicate, self-supporting conspiracy. One misplaced block during construction would have sent the entire vision shattering into the lakebed. Yet it did not shatter. It stood firm against the frosts of 100 winters and the shifting roots of the forest. Time is the bridge's only real adversary now, and even time seems to revere the perfection of the circle. Beyond the physics, there is a psychological labyrinth at play. Why does the human mind crave the closure of the circle so desperately? We are creatures obsessed with patterns, and when water closes the gap, our brain registers a triumph over the brokenness of reality. Some psychologists argue that the bridge triggers a deep cognitive response, a yearning for wholeness that borders on the spiritual. Perhaps Rakotzbrücke wasn't just a romantic architect. He was a manipulator of the soul, using stone to force us to witness unity. But where does the hunger for such terrifying beauty lead a man who isolates himself in a forest with a devil's eye? Friedrich Hermann Rakotzbrücke remains a shadow, a figure with no famous diary confessing his obsessions. All we have is the bridge, which speaks for him in the language of gravity and reflection. One must imagine him standing on the bank in the year of its completion, watching the first dusk bleed into the water. Did he feel a shiver of the sublime? Or did he fear that something in the darkness had truly heard his ambition and answered? The toll such a creation takes on a human spirit is the silent cost of building things meant to look divine. Since his death, the bridge has slipped from private estate into public imagination, drawing painters, photographers, and seekers of wonder. Many come seeking the reflection for their photographs, often finding that the lake's surface refuses to cooperate with a breeze. When the water is disturbed, the devil's eye blinks and turns back into a mundane, if beautiful, stone arch. But on those rare, windless mornings, the illusion locks into place with a snap that feels almost audible to the spirit. It is then that the medieval warning echoes across the water. Do not cross at midnight. Do not look the devil in the eye. Of course, today you cannot walk across the bridge at all. The stones are too fragile, and the preservationists have sealed the path. This closure only deepens the mystique, turning the bridge into a forbidden passage, a locked door in the middle of nature. Human obsession with the bridge has not faded. It has simply shifted from tactile exploration to the intense capture of its image. Social media is now flooded with the perfect circle. Yet no photograph ever truly transmits the weight of the silence there. You can frame the reflection, but you cannot digitize the irrational unease that crawls up your spine as the fog thickens. Some visitors whisper of a sound, a low hum, or perhaps a vibration that emanates from the water when the circle is fully visible. Geologists attribute this to distant seismic shifts or the resonance of the basalt columns acting like tuning forks. But sitting alone on the bank as dusk falls, scientific reasoning struggles against the primal certainty that you are not alone. The human obsession with the Devil's Bridge is ultimately an obsession with our own boundaries. How much can we create before we cross into something unnatural? The Romantics called this the sublime, the terrible, thrilling recognition that our minds are too small to hold the infinite. Rechka built a tangible sublime, a frozen echo of the human scream into the void, and we still come to listen. There is a final, poignant side to the legend. In some versions, the dog that ran across was not a trick, but a sacrifice. The creature crossed into the devil's domain, and though the builder saved his own soul, he lost innocence on those stones. That, perhaps, is the true toll of the labyrinth. We fill the emptiness with grace, but we cannot do so without leaving a shadow. The bridge's shadow, however, is not black. It is a reflection of light, an inverted twin that gleams with the exact same detail. To gaze at the Devil's Bridge is to confront the paradox that destruction and creation are often the same arc viewed from a different angle. As the day ends and the forest darkens, the circle begins to fade. First, the top of the arch swallowed by dusk, then the reflection dimming. The perfect geometry retreats into the realm of the invisible, waiting for the next dawn or the next moon to resurrect it. We are left standing on the shore, with the realization that all our knowledge does not fully erode the power of a myth. You can recite the mason's name, the date, the chemical composition of the basalt, and still the circle will haunt your memory. That is the enduring enigma of Kromlau. History has handed us a solved puzzle, but the solution feels insufficient. In truth, we don't want the mystery fully solved, because the chill of uncertainty is the very atmosphere that makes us feel alive. Perhaps the devil in the story is not a fallen angel, but our own inevitable confrontation with the limits of a rational universe. The bridge stands, a weathered relic, not as proof of a demonic pact, but as evidence of a bottomless human need to touch the impossible. As you walk away through the rustling leaves, you carry a small, cold stone of doubt lodged in your thinking about what we can truly know. The waters will keep still in your mind, waiting to complete a circle that exists nowhere in nature on such a monumental scale. Time will continue to march over the bridge, even as we are forbidden to follow, eroding the edges slowly, gently, mercilessly. And one day, perhaps a century from now, the stones may finally yield to gravity and slip beneath the surface. But until that moment, the perfect reflection endures, a silent sentinel of mystery that defies the decay of simple answers. So we leave the Devil's Bridge as we found it, half in water, half in legend, and entirely beyond the reach of mortal certainty.